And we're live, but we got to let it breathe, baby. Just for a moment. Get some of that O2 and let these platforms connect. Get Instagram going, and we're about ready to rock. One more. Welcome in, everybody. It's the Mile High Huddle podcast. I'm your host, Chad Jensen. With me is my fellow football priest. You know him, you love him, Zack Kelberman. Zack, the Broncos, it's interesting because already today I've received multiple either DMs or comments from fans saying, I'm so pissed the NFL didn't let us have the draft. And then, come to find out, well, guess what? The Broncos didn't ask for the draft. But you had the story for us. Tell us what's going on with the draft, where the Broncos fit in.
Yeah, credit to Parker Gabriel of the Denver Post. He reported that the Broncos never even submitted a bid for the 2027 draft, which was officially awarded today to Washington, D.C. 2026 was awarded to Pittsburgh. The Broncos were set a couple years ago to be in the running for either iteration, Chad, and they got neither because Damani Leach, Broncos team president, said it's not really what we're working on right now. They have other irons in the fire, as I wrote in the story. They're working on expanding their brand internationally. They might have the game in Berlin against the Colts. Also, maybe a new stadium in Lone Tree, Aurora, Denver. So a lot of other projects they're working on, but it doesn't seem like hosting the draft is one of them.
I tell you what, though, if they were to, man, Denver would be hopping, baby. It would be great for the city. And I think it's got a good format, a good layout for such that number of people to be coming in from all over the world. But down the road, guys, down the road. What's going on? We got the Papa Bear in the house with an early super chat.
Thank
you, brother. David McElrath checking in, saying, good evening, Broncos country. Chad, Zach, and Deacon Scott. Hashtag 13-4 question mark. So it's like, I'm Ron Burgundy. So like 13-4, like that. God bless the USA. Let's go, Bo. MHH for life. Buckham ×3. Broncos for life. Yeah, buddy. I love it. I love it. Your predictions on the record came pretty dang close to true last year, David. You stayed really true to him in the face of some, I wouldn't say, we'll call it discounting, right? Some people, come on, let's not get too big for our britches. But you were right, bro. Benji Clay jumping in. Are we still paying Russ? And how much with an Allen restructure set us back? Top priority, in my opinion, is Allen, considering Nick Benito's so hard to project and we can tag. So first things first, we're not paying Russ. The Broncos are technically no longer paying him, but they are carrying another 35, 36, whatever it is, million in dead cap. And so you go, well, wait a minute, doesn't that mean we're paying him? No, that's money you paid him. That's money that's already been cashed out, given to him in the form of signing bonuses, roster bonuses, like all that stuff. And then the way the NFL cap, Zach, voodoo works is you roll it forward. You can defer those cash hits, those bonuses over multiple years if you so choose. And that's how teams are able to kind of finagle the cap and work around it. And so that's the short answer. Are we still paying Russ? No, but the ghost still haunts Dove Valley, even though, what's that? 32 million. That's the dead cap this year. So even though he's gone, Zach, the specter of Russ still slightly haunts in terms of the financial ramifications.
But that's what makes last season so beautiful is that they took the bigger hit, 50+ million in dead cap, and they went on with a rookie quarterback, Chad, to have a 10-win season, a playoff berth. So they're coming out of it now. They can see the light at the end of the tunnel with Russell Wilson for sure. With Zach Allen and Benito, if you extend Allen, Scott, Chad, and I were talking about this before the pod, Benji, and it would actually lower Allen's cap hit, at least for this season. And like Chad was talking about, you could spread the guaranteed money, spread the cap hits, maybe add some void years over the life of the contract. And I agree with you. I think if I had to choose one right now, Allen is as good as and explosive as Nick Benito was, Chad. Allen just does more overall just by playing 1 billion snaps a season.
Indeed. He's got to be the priority on that side of the ball, but also Sutton. Cortland Sutton's in a contract year. You got to figure that out. Kind of interesting, though. Nick Kosmider of The Athletic, Zach had an article talking to Pat Bryant's college position coach at Illinois, who just so happened to be Cortland Sutton's position coach at SMU. And he talked about the similarities that they share and how they're just like each other. Basically, Bryant is just like Sutton. So you think to yourself, well, wait a minute. Maybe the Broncos, Zach, already have their contingency plan in place in the event things don't work out with Sutton. All of the signs, all of the public comments and everything this offseason from George Payton and Sean Payton, Zach, point towards we're going to get a deal done with Sutton. They value him. I expect that to happen, but you still got to have contingencies, and would seem maybe Pat Bryant is that contingency.
Yeah, we talked about last night the comparison of the Philadelphia Eagles and how they operate with Howie Roseman, and how the Broncos and how the fans want George Payton to operate. And what Howie Roseman also always does is plan for the future, plan ahead, and get ahead of contracts. We talked about it with Savion Jones, Chad. He might be the fallback plan, insurance policy for JFM, who wants a contract. Well, Pat Bryant could be the insurance policy for Cortland Sutton. So very smart drafting by George Payton in that sense.
Victor, what's going on, big dog? Great to see you. Thank you for the super chat, my friend. It says, good afternoon, fellas. I hope everyone had a wonderful weekend. Excited for some lethal defense this year, and finally to get a Broncos win here in KC. So behind enemy lines is Victor. I still need a win since moving here. Hashtag MHH for life, Denver Broncos for life. Man, it was so close last year, Zach.
Should have had it.
The block kick, as time expired, man. It still rankles the soul, doesn't it?
Yeah, man. Alex Forsyth, what are you doing? I still see him getting just bulldozed at the point of attack, Chad. And I think it was Leo Chanel of the Chiefs who had the blocker. He scooped it up, whatever. That was a devastating loss, Victor. But I think this could be the season. The Broncos will at least go toe-to-toe with KC, and they could sneak out of Arrowhead with that dub.
Indeed. I hope and expect to see it this time around. But let's see. Sean Payton, since coming to Denver, he snapped the streak. What was it, 16 straight, Zach, that the Chiefs had on the Broncos. They split that year, and then they split last year. But coulda, woulda, shoulda, all that. Still, Sean Payton should be 3-1 versus the Chiefs as Broncos head coach. We'll see, man. We'll see. The scales have tipped in that department. Now, the big difference between the Chiefs, the Broncos were obviously uber competitive with the Chiefs head-to-head last year. So we're able to measure and see that a lot of that gap has been closed between where the Broncos were and where the Chiefs have been since Mahomes entered the equation. But where they separate, Zach, and where the Chiefs continue to rise and the Broncos they rose too, but not at the same level, is that consistency throughout the season, not just head-to-head, but continuing to win games, win the games you're supposed to, which the Broncos did a good job of last year relative to recent history. They did win 10 games, but you want to eclipse the Chiefs, Zach, you got to get up into that 13 to 14, even 15 win total area. And that requires a phenomenal level of consistency game in, game out. And it's what separates the greats from the really goods.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you want to take down the mighty Patrick Mahomes, you have to do one of two things. Either have an elite, overwhelming defense or have a quarterback that can vanquish him. And if you look at the stats last year, head-to-head in that game against Kansas City, at KC, I should say, Bo Nix arguably outplayed Patrick Mahomes. And now with the addition of Jahdae Barron and a couple other players, Savion Jones, they could have the defense that could stifle Mahomes. So their arrows pointing up, and I have no doubt about they're going to at least make those games competitive.
Inexplicably, it's Jahdae Barron, or it's more like Jahdae. So the way I now think of it, Zach, to get it right, is I go like this. I pretend that it's spelled Zahdae. I just pretend there's a Z there and remember to kind of Jahdae. Not Zade, not a sharp Z, Jahdae, kind of like, but man, it's tough. I can't wait to see that dude out on the grass, though. Benji, to get specific relative to his super, are we going to have to pay Zach Allen $25 million a year? Yeah, something in that department probably. Will it eclipse? Will it reach $25 million a year in your opinion, Zach?
I mean, probably. I wouldn't be surprised if the negotiations start at that. I mean, those price tags for defensive linemen in the NFL, what he can do especially are not getting any cheaper. It's only going to get more expensive. And that's why I've been saying for a while now, all offseason, pay Zach Allen, get that out of the way, and then focus on the next candidate.
What's this about, Todd? Why are my super chats in Indian money? I don't know what that means. Does it have something to do with the X story where there's something about their monetization? They stopped allowing Indian accounts, India, right? Indian accounts to collect. What do they call that, Zach? Creator rev share, whatever monies.
Yeah.
I don't know, but yeah, that was in the news today. Maybe that, or the last day or two. Maybe that's what you're referencing, tongue in cheek. What's up, Pearl? Good to see you tonight, my dear. Hope you're doing well. Let me see what Mr. Producer's saying. Oh, it defaults. He's saying, Scott says when he tries to do a super, it defaults to Indian dollars. That's weird. Maybe you have like a VPN. Have you checked it? I mean, if you have a VPN, a lot of times, you set a VPN. I mean, you have to do this, but maybe you didn't realize it was done and you set your location to India or something. I don't know. But either way, dude, we appreciate you just being here. That's for sure. Zach, today I wrote up an article, kind of obligatory this time of year. It's traditional. It's about that time of year. The free agent period's in the books. Not to say there won't be further moves, but the bulk of it, obviously, long in the books, drafts in the books. Let's take a look. Instead of a way too early 53-man roster projection, it's more of a early starting lineup projection. And as I was going through it, I realized that when you count the rookies and the free agents, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and if you count specialists and returners, 6, 7 new faces, Zach, in the starting lineups. And it's interesting because if you think back to what the Broncos lost in free agency, you really think about Javonte, you think about maybe Cody Barton, but you also got to remember that you lost Tremont Smith, who was one of the 2 kick returners, etc. But what do you think? Am I wrong in my projected starting offense as you see it there on screen? Now, keep in mind, that's 12 players. I know that 11 guys obviously are on the field at one time, but I include the fullback there for certain base packages, right? So you tell me if I got anything wrong.
No, the only nit you can possibly pick is maybe Tim Bryant starts off as the number 3 guy or is in that role.
Dude, Freudian. Think about how Freudian that slip was. Tim Bryant.
Excuse me, Pat Bryant.
Yeah, but I'm telling you, there are a lot of similarities in their game as well. We talk about Bryant, Sutton, also Zach, Timmy P, and Bryant.
Yeah, so he's the only question mark there. Other than that, Chad, I mean, maybe you can argue Audric Estime at running back, but you don't spend a high second-round pick on a rookie like R.J. Harvey and not make him the starter. So I think you're correct here.
So what I've got, Bo Nix, obviously, R.J. Harvey, Cortland Sutton as wide receiver, Marvin Mims, Devon Vele, tight end Evan Ingram. Line is pretty self-explanatory. Bowles, Powers, Wattenberg, Miners, McGlinchey, and then, of course, mentioning Michael Burton. But it is interesting, Zach, to think about, well, that third wide receiver spot that I currently have Vele in by virtue of seniority. Really, it's a seniority thing, even though we're talking 1 year. But nevertheless, Pat Bryant, and again, reading Kosmiter's article, talking about him and his strengths and all that stuff, and really helps paint the picture, Zach, on why the Broncos fell in love with Pat Bryant. Again, we know how enamored Sean Payton gets with a certain big body prototype at wide receiver, but really with Bryant, it's not just that he checks from a prototype standpoint a lot of the same boxes as Sutton. What could accelerate his path potentially, maybe not day 1, regular season, week 1, but sooner than you might think to the starting lineup, is that blocking acumen. Because Sutton's a willing blocker. Is he an able blocker? Yeah. Is he like kick butt blocker on the perimeter like Bryant is, or like what's his name, Lil Jordan Humphrey was? No. So that could see Bryant, like you're saying here. That's a good point. Leapfrog Devon Vele in the pecking order.
I think at the very minimum, he already leapfrogged Troy Franklin, because Franklin doesn't play special teams that much, and in an area that Bryant will shine at, I think, Chad. But yeah, seniority is a good point there, and I think he'll work his way up. But at floor, I mentioned this before, with Bryant, you have Tim Patrick. At ceiling, you have Michael Thomas. Either way, the Broncos are getting a hell of a talent.
We're going to keep going through it, but, Mr. Producer, Taylor Christensen jumping in with a super. Thank you, buddy.
Thank you, Taylor.
Great to see you, big dog. Says, hey, Zach, you were correct yesterday about the Eagles. Even with the guys Philly lost, they just drafted their replacements or more. They're loaded. Yes, they are, man. That's one of those perennial teams. And then he jumps in again to say, I don't know who's going to take Philly down. Yeah, especially with the tush push, Zach. I'm kind of joking. But nevertheless, your thoughts for Taylor.
I appreciate that, Taylor. I don't know that Saquon is going to duplicate the season he had this year. I think they're due for a little bit of a regression. They're still going to be a formidable team, but we'll see how that shakes out. But same thing with all these other premier franchises. Have you watched the Ravens in the last 10 years or so? They always finish in the back half of the first round because they always have a decent record, a good record. And they always land, Chad, by staying pat. They don't make any blockbuster trades. They don't make any splashes, but they always land like a top 10 or top 15 prospect at like 25, 26, 27. And they just always draft for the future. They always keep the cabinet replenished. And that's smart, long-term, pragmatic general managing by George Paton.
No doubt. Max Rio, north of the 49th parallel, proving each and every day the Broncos country is not a geographic location. It's a state of being, baby. Max says, evening, gents, in Broncos country. So happy we got a D lineman, Savion Jones, and our RB1, RJ Harvey. I love every minute of the draft coverage. Keep up the great work. MHH for life. Take the West. Go Broncos.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, that's a credit to Eric and Nick and Carl and Lance and Dylan. And I think Ron chipped in a little bit, but especially the heavy workload on Eric, Nick, Carl, Lance. I didn't mention Lance, Dylan, those guys, they work their butt off. So credit to those guys for not only doing those long freaking streams, but all the work and study and research that goes into being informed so that when you turn on the microphone and the camera and you start streaming to an audience of thousands, you know what you're talking about.
And it's the little consistent stories throughout the scouting process, really throughout the calendar year. Like we have the Finding Broncos series by Eric and now the Found Broncos series by Eric. He does just a phenomenal job, literally year-round, around the clock. So shouts. Like
Scott says, it's like running a marathon. Sure, you run for 4 to 5 hours, the marathon itself, and that sucks. But really what sucks harder is the training, the 400 hours worth of training to get your body into shape and conditioned and all that. So that's that's a very apt comparison there, my friend. Okay, Max, much love, buddy. Yeah, we're stoked for Harvey. We're stoked for Jones. It's going to be fun to see how it shakes out. We're going to go back to the starting lineup thing, but Phil, real quick, saying, good evening, Chad, Zach, Deacon Scott. What do you guys think about CBS Sports ranking our QB room 8th worst in the NFL? Just another example of the disrespect we get. Hashtag Buckham, MHH for life, Broncos for life. I saw someone, Zach, complaining about Mike Clay. Who was it? Man, it was earlier in the stream. Pardon, I can't remember who it was. Sorry, guys. But I didn't know about this either, CBS Sports. The question for me here, before I get my dander up too much, is who at CBS Sports is saying that. But maybe we can find a link, Zach. I don't know. But your general thoughts here for Phil.
I just pulled it up. It's by Garrett Podil, who I've no offense, I've never heard of.
I've never heard of him either.
I don't think Scott has either. Chad hasn't either. And ranking 10.
And all of us used to be at CBS, by the way. So we would know him maybe.
Yeah, ranking the 10 worst quarterback rooms: the Seahawks, Giants, Broncos, Saints, Jets, Titans, Vikings, Browns, Colts, and Steelers. So they must not be fans of Jarrett Stidham or Sam Ehlinger, I guess, Chad, because by having Bo Nix as your starting quarterback, that raises the overall floor of it. But Phil, who really cares? We talked about it last night, the disrespect, Bo Nix, the erasure, the absence of Bo Nix, and it's just fuel to the fire. He'll prove them all wrong. Let him hate.
Did you remember, Scott, that 80s new wave band Erasure? Do you remember them? I so rarely hear that word that when I do hear or read it, I was never into it, but my aunt, who's like my big sis, we're only separated by a few years. She loved those guys and had a shirt, so it sticks in my head. All right, anecdote over. But Zach, charge it to the game. It is ridiculous to think that a Bronco quarterback room, regardless of what you think of Jarrett Stidham or Sam or whatever, the fact that it features Bo Nix at the top, who, were it not for him deciding, I'm going to go ahead and get that treatment now instead of later, would have been a rookie Pro Bowler, and you're going to rank him 8th worst. I mean, it's a joke, dude. Second most. Who was it last night, Zach? We were complaining about not being included in the top 10 rookie FanDuel top 10 rookie quarterback seasons of all time. Caleb Williams, and of course you're going to put the Washington kid Daniels, but to omit Bo Nix, willing ignorance, willful ignorance. That's the word. That's the phrase. Willful ignorance. That's what it is. And in this case, man, it's like, hey, dude, plausibly, Bo Nix and the Broncos quarterback room, plausibly, to maintain a modicum of credibility in your general analysis as a writer, as an analyst, as a podcaster, whatever, you go below 15, you're going to start raising eyebrows. You can maybe flirt a little under that and still, depending on your argument, keep it. But dude, 8th worst, give me a break. What a joke.
I'm reading a couple blips here from the article, Chad, and it's getting me a little heated. His conservative game manager style of play led to a struggle-filled day in his NFL postseason debut against the Buffalo Bills. Keep in mind, no running game. The defense couldn't stop a nosebleed, and then he still has some work to do to become a bigger threat through the air to NFL defenses in 2025. So it's more of the narrative, Chad. We've heard it. We've heard it since he was drafted. We heard it before he was drafted. It's going to continue. It will continue even if he wins a Super Bowl. But who really cares what they say, what Garrett Pottle has to say? He doesn't know. We know around here.
What a joke, dude. As a rookie, he passed for 3,775 yards. As a rookie.
Which they mentioned in the article, by the way.
29 touchdowns. Here, Peter Parker, Spider-Man, checking in with us, saying Mike Clay, so shifting gears, but in the same realm here, has Bo Nix throwing for 3,400 yards in a 17-game season with improved weapons and a whole year of experience in the league. 24 touchdowns, 11 picks. Seems a tad conservative. Yeah, it does, a little bit. Now, when we were in this position, Zach, last year, he's a rookie, completely untested in the league, but the most experienced quarterback to ever be drafted into the NFL in terms of college. I picked his passing touchdown stats to be between 22 and 24 touchdowns. I felt like that was a nice balance of being uber optimistic and also like cautiously pragmatic relative to what I believed him to be as a quarterback, the Sean Payton scheme, the talent around him. Then he goes out and outkicks that coverage by quite a lot. 29 even compared to 24 touchdowns is a lot. It's a lot. Then you throw in, Zach, that he also scored 5 additional touchdowns either on the ground or through the air, catching the pass in Baltimore, all that. Right. So it's really a joke, dude. And I like it. Guys, this is good. Let him sleep. Let him hate. Let him, Bo Nix will just kind of fly under the radar. He'll cruise. And then, bam, right in the teeth.
I think it's time to redesign those Let 'em Hate shirts with the number 10 in there, Chad, because this disrespect is not going to stop. And it's crazy. It is very conservative because, as you mentioned, Chad, Bo threw for 3,700, 29 and 12 as a rookie, again, with no running game and really only one viable playmaker in Cortland Sutton. You add in RJ Harvey, you add in Evan Ingram, Bryant. How is he going to do less? It's ridiculous.
Not only that, but guys, you're talking about the top 1 or 2 offensive line in football that he gets again in 2025. It's just such shallow, stupid, bubblegum, crackerjack analysis that you just have to, it's a joke. As Big Ern says here on FanDuel yesterday, it's just a joke. Let him hate. Let him sleep. It's all good. It's lazy. Exactly, Mr. Producer. It's just lazy analysis, and we charge it to the game. Okay, Zach, let's go back to this starting lineup thing to keep the conversation flowing. All right, that was the offense. Let's talk about defense. And again, I want you to tell me if there's any weak links here. Obviously, this is me projecting.
I see one already.
Okay, here we go. Defensive end, Allen Jones, John Franklin Myers on the D-line, and then your outside linebackers, Benito Cooper, inside, Singleton, Greenlaw. I'm still expecting him to be good to go. Yep. Corners, Surtain, Moss, and I'm putting Jade Barron. Safeties, Hufanga, Moss, and of course 3 new names there, Zach. Now go ahead and hit.
Man, this defense on paper is absolutely sick, Chad. There's no reason why they shouldn't be top 2, if not the best defense in the NFL. But right in the middle there, both figuratively and literally, is the only weak link, really, maybe except for Riley Moss as an outside cornerback, but Alex Singleton. Not only was he a limited player before his injury, but he's 31, 32, whatever, coming off a major injury. I just don't know what he's going to do in the middle there. And he might have to do a little more heavy lifting with Dre Greenlaw acclimating himself after his own quad injury.
Right. So the Canadian-born Alex Singleton is entering, Zach, his age 32 season, coming off an ACL. Brutal. the Broncos tried to hedge a little bit, knowing Singleton is recovering and that Greenlaw has a jacket, by re-signing Justin Sternad, who, for some of his warts, Zach, at least he does have that experience. Last year was a great tape, great experience. No, initially it was, but as the season wore on, man, he was just the king of the missed tackles. But it's experience and it's depth, and it's a guy that knows the scheme. So then you got the JB Brown, right, who's saying, I'm going to take someone's job, undrafted linebacker out of Kansas. You got Lavelle Bailey from last year. There's one other
Sanders.
Who?
Drew Sanders.
Right, besides Drew Sanders. I can't believe I didn't think of him. But the other kind of lower on the doesn't matter. But if Sanders, even Zach, turns a corner and develops, and I think he will if he stays healthy, because his sole focus this offseason is off-ball inside linebacker. Sorry, I don't mean to trigger you, Scott. Inside linebacker. That should allow him to specialize and keep his focus sharp where it needs to be on one position, instead of, oh, now I'm an outside linebacker. Oh, now I'm back. Well, you're back to inside, but you've been back to inside now for the better part of a year. So he could factor into this. The Broncos, Zach, are still very bullish and confident that Sanders is going to be a starting caliber guy for them.
And there's also Q Robinson, who's a tweener. I mean, I know he's listed as outside, but he can play a little inside too. So there's a lot of different options they have. And I guess, Chad, to be fair, you can't have a Pro Bowler. You can't have an all-pro at every single position. Sometimes you need just the old, steady, reliable. And that's what Alex Singleton is. And I think he'll be wearing the green dot if healthy once again.
And then again, not exactly starters, right? But I mean, I guess that's starters. Special teams. Marvin Mims is your primary punt returner. He is one of your two guys lined up as a kick returner. Trent Sherfield projects as the guy next to him, kind of replacing the Tremont Smith role. He's a new free agent. Jeremy Crawshaw is the new punter. Book it. It's in stone. Sorry, Matt Hack. You're going to be gonzo. They invested a 6th-round draft pick. He's not just that they invested the pick, Zach, but he's actually a phenomenal punter. He's going to be a weapon. Will Lutz, Mitchell Fraboni. Anything here that catches the eye or might be off?
For Boney, he's going to be challenged for the long snap. I know it's a long snapper, but I can't remember who they brought in. But somebody is going to compete with Fraboni, who signed an extension and made him one of the highest paid long snappers in the NFL earlier this offseason. So that's the only spot.
Zach Triner?
Yeah, Zach Triner, veteran.
Triner, yeah. Yeah, well, the big thing about that is I think it's more of like fail-safe, because Fraboni is either hurt or had a procedure. I'm trying to remember it this off the top of my head. But either way, it'll be interesting. That is, you're right. Long snapper is a just, low level in terms of it's not something we're going to sit and title episodes around or anything in terms of the water cooler, but it is one of those positions, Zach, that could be up for grabs.
We're not going to title any episodes until the long snapper, blows a game-winning snap or whatever. So we don't really hear about them unless they do something bad. And Fraboni, to his credit, Chad, as a long snapper, has been pretty good. I think he was an alternate for the Pro Bowl.
Really good. I mean, I can't think of. I mean, hey, man, the whole long snapper thing can get measured in terms of success and failure. Gets measured in millimeters, right, in terms of their accuracy and how well they put it on the spot for the holder or for the punter. But I can't think off the top of my head of one memory of a sideways long snap from Fraboni.
I don't think so.
Since he's been the guy replacing wasn't Kreider the guy before him, if I remember. Why do I know that? Well, because, I'm a sick maniac, right? Hey, Leroy, dude, what's up, bro? What's up to my favorite priest? Mile High salute. Right back at you, brother. Says, when I say I'm pumped for the season, it is an understatement. Question. Do you think Sean Payton is going to open up that playbook a little bit more as he gains more confidence with Bo Nix? We have to go all out this year to prove them all that we're legit. Yeah, I mean, I think, Zach, as you saw, it was pretty clear the first quarter of the season, including the game we were there for the meet and greet and all that Sean Payton was keeping the training wheels on initially, spoon feeding him, etc. But I'd say by the time you had October in the books and Nix goes on to win Offensive Rookie of the Month and all that, I think within reason, I'm sure there are still some things, but within reason, I think he was the playbook had pretty much been opened up. Like they were rocking and rolling. Just the fact that they had that one Denver special, whatever you want to call it, that actual touchdown reception where Sutton threw to him and he went up, Bo came down, made sure he fell into the end zone. So awesome. I don't think there are any holds barred for Sean Payton and his now second-year quarterback, Zach.
Leroy, I think the playbook is going to open up itself by the virtue of finally having a running game. You can't discount how impactful that was to a rookie quarterback, having to do it all, literally having to be the leading rusher in some games, Chad, and also obviously the leading passer. So Harvey is going to help take some pressure off of him. And also we're going to see more freedom, I think, with Bo Nix's legs, Bo Nix's running ability. I think more RPOs, design runs, while hopefully keeping him as safe as possible.
David Youngkin, adios, buddy. Great to see you tonight. Thanks for swinging in and hanging with us for a half an hour, bro. Leroy coming back to say, I say try Drew Sanders, Q Robinson, or someone else at inside linebacker because I don't trust Singleton. I do. I'm just not sure what to expect. I mean, look, as a 45-year-old dude, one of the big things that you have to face, and I'm not a world-class athlete like a guy in the NFL, but they're not immune to this, is the older you get, you lose some of your twitch and pop and athletic, whatever you want to call it. But the more active you are, and that's why with athletes, it's hard to measure as they get older because it's in very small degrees that they lose these things. The biggest thing, though, is something you can't control, and that is simply you don't recover as quickly when you get hurt. It's just like, I don't know, a month ago, I'm trying to step into the bathtub or whatever, trying to sit down, read a book one night. My wife's in bed with the kids sleeping, and there was like, I don't know, like conditioner residue or something from a previous tub, like earlier that day. Woo! Down I go, dude. Smash my knee, smash my shin into the side of the tub. I'm sure if it could have been filmed, it would have been like comedic gold. Nevertheless, Zach, that's something that, 10 years ago, I'd been like, maybe it hobbled me for a day or two, but it's lingering now, dude. It's probably a good month and a half, 2 months out now that I think about it. And that's part of getting older. So that's the only concern I have, Zach, with Singleton. All right. Really. Hey, is he a great coverage guy? No, but he's sideline to sideline, dude. He's going to fit those runs. He's going to tackle the guy, provided he recovered on schedule. But if it's a no-go, or if Greenlaw, Zach, if there are further complications with him, Drew Sanders, I think, is probably going to get the first bite at the apple, even though Justin Sternad is the more experienced guy. They want to see what they've got in Sanders.
In Broncos canon, I don't think Alex Singleton is despised to the level of like Melvin Gordon, let's say, but he's just a very limited player. And he was, before the injury, before the Broncos even signed him, he's a 2-down run stuffer, but he's also a very popular locker room guy. He's a fan favorite. He's a leader on that defense. And again, you need those workman-like, blue-collar, show up and do your job and leave kind of players. And that's what Alex Singleton is. So as long as they can utilize him properly, have him on the field and passing down, or on running down to get him off the field on passing downs, they should be able to weather that weakness in the middle.
Phil jumping in again, brother, saying, is there a chance that the undrafted rookie Clay Webb could be a future center or guard? Yes, it's very possible. The Broncos have a formidable starting five, but their depth is a little sketch. I mean, if your shining stud backup plan is Alex Forsyth, I know that's heavily weighted now, Zach, by the foible of Arrowhead and just getting pushed on his rear end and losing a game. But still, if that's your like best backup guy, maybe Matt Pert, you throw him in there as a tackle, but nevertheless, Alex Palczewski, maybe, I don't know, you pick and choose, whatever. It's nothing to write home about, and it's never going to be in the NFL, man. NFL, if just to have a really good starting offensive line, a starting five is tough in and of itself, but you're not going to have what I'm saying, Zach, Pro Bowlers at every freaking spot on the depth chart. But still, Webb had a draftable grade. Some off-the-field concerns and things and unresolved issues caused him to fall, if I recall right, but he did have a draftable grade, Zach.
Yeah, I made kind of an obscure remark before the draft, and I was talking about who the Broncos could target in the 7th round, or later rounds, or undrafted free agency, and I mentioned Quinn Bailey. And he was a Bronco for a few years. He spanned multiple regimes, and he played pretty much every spot except center. Played outside, he played inside. They haven't really replaced him. Webb, who's going to play both center and guard. He's going to be versatile and position flexible. I think that might be the Quinn Bailey replacement, Chad. But they also brought aboard Xavier Truss, the former Georgia lineman, and Joel Mikowski. So they have a few they could, look through to decide who they want to keep.
Patrick, what's going on, bro? I ran into a ton of your coffee when I was in Hawaii a couple weeks ago, by the way. I even snuck a pic and sent it to Nick and Scott so they could see Lion Coffee. He wants to know, by the way, and I bought some too. Any news on Singleton? What we've heard from Singleton in terms of his recovery, he had a little feature. I want to say, Zach, it was on the team website, maybe, I don't know, a couple weeks before the draft, might have been closer to free agency, where he's, got that smile and he's saying, yeah, I'm doing great. I'm ahead of schedule. I'm going to be good to go. So that's all we know. And that's from the horse's mouth. No official reports rebutting it or anything, even questioning it. So it seems like his recovery is on schedule. And what was that, week 3, I think? Or was it? Yeah, it was the Tampa game, right? That he got hurt. So he's had a lot of water under the bridge, a lot of time to recover. So I expect him to be healed, but is he going to trust it? The same thing that happens for any of these guys recovering from an ACL. It takes them a little time to get their game legs beneath them.
I think no news is good news for Singleton. So as long as we don't hear he's experienced a setback or anything like that, he should be good to go for week 1. But the problem is the Broncos and Sean Payton, they lock down inside the building. They don't let anything get out. They don't give the media much. We might know, Patrick, a little more when the veterans show up for voluntary OTAs later this month.
George, thank you, buddy. Says, thanks for a great pod, guys. Broncos for life, MHH for life. Hit the thumbs up. Yeah, guys, take a second and knock that out. Hit the like button. Small thing you can do right now to help us out in a big, bad way. Zach, I'm going to take one more look back here on I don't know if we talked about this last night. I don't think we did. Maybe we touched on it, but we didn't really get into it. But thought it was interesting. Talanoa Hufanga talking to Benny Fowler, who is now with the good folks over at DNVR. He talked about, and I'm not going to quote it and read it, but he talked about just how pivotal Bo Nix was in the recruiting equation for both he and Dre Greenlaw to sign with the Broncos. He basically called him, Bo Nix, the reason. And I guess I'll read it. He just said, quote, even talking to Dre, he was my locker room partner at Niners, locker partner. And then we came here together. We were like, man, when you got a quarterback that can go out there and really play as a defense, it's not just 3 and out. There are a lot of teams like that in the NFL. So for us, it's like, we've got potential here. Why can't we come over here and help change? He's the reason, close quote. And then he went on to say that when he took his visit to Denver as a free agent and whatnot, that Bo Nix, quote, reached out immediately, got to see him the day I signed, got to chop it up with him. He's a guy that's just been a gamer, close quote. So kind of similar, maybe to a lesser degree, Zach, but kind of similar to, we used to call it back then, the Peyton Manning effect, how much of a lightning rod he was in assisting John Elway and getting those free agent deals done. I guess now we call it, Zach, the Bo Nix effect.
Yeah, that's right. And the Broncos have become a destination franchise again. And it's all because of Bo Nix. And, obviously Sean Payton, the success coaching Bo Nix. But when you have a franchise quarterback, Chad, it's amazing how attractive you become. And think of where Hufanga came from. Think of where Greenlaw came from, San Francisco. Who's their quarterback? Brock Purdy. Hell of a quarterback, gets crapped on all the time, gets disrespected, and never given the proper credit. Does that sound familiar? He might see a little bit of Purdy in Bo Nix, and he just knows, though, that he has the right stuff and he's the guy.
So that's an interesting story. We touched on the whole draft aspect. This is kind of not necessarily breaking news, but kind of interesting. Trevor Sikkema, who is Pro Football Focus's, I would say, their number 1 draft guy, and he's got some bona fides. He's been with a lot of top outfits, including PFF, for a long time now, but he picked, as much as he loves RJ Harvey, Zach, Trevor Sikkema chose Jahdae Barron as his favorite Broncos draft pick. And he went on to say, quote, the team's front office has made it clear it wants to field one of the best, if not the best, defenses in football in 2025. Their offseason and selection of Barron prove that Barron can play the slot and the outside cornerback as a defensive joker, as Sean Payton referenced at the NFL Scouting Combine. Barron earned a 91.5 zone coverage grade in his first year as a wide, meaning on the boundary cornerback at Texas in 2024, close quote. So, Zach, Barron, according to Sycamore, could be setting the Broncos up, as we kind of illustrated earlier, looking at this projected starting lineup, as the best defense in the NFL. It's really tough to find a weak spot when you look at that lineup.
I'm going to just assume his favorite pick was Barron, because Barron shouldn't have been there at 20. He was graded a lot higher, Chad, and there is the consensus that the Broncos reached on RJ Harvey. So I really like the Broncos class. Like, I've come around to it, and I think it'll turn out very well for George Payton.
So we've grabbed what is the Mike, thanks, bud. You don't look a day over 44. I appreciate it, dude. If you could just see the crow's feet. The older you get, man, for me, the more it just starts, but that's common, right? But yeah, 45, dude. I'm in my 46th year, as my Aunt Kathy likes to say. She'll call me on my birthday, whatever year it is. She'll just add the next one, because you are technically, when you're 45, you turn 45. Now you're in your 46th year. Just turn the knife just a little bit. Shout out. She watches the show once in a while. Okay. And I think what I'm getting at here, Zach, is I think we've touched on all the main news points and just interesting conversation topics for tonight. So let's get to a few parting messages, and then we'll take one last look at the chat. So this is your last chance for any burning questions, topics, supers. Get them in the chat now.
Fantastic episode, as always, of the Mile High Huddle podcast. If you're not doing so, please follow us on X at the MHH Pod. You can follow the main account on X at Mile High Huddle, Chad at Chad and Jensen, myself at Kelberman NFL, and Scott, our producer, at Scout Kennedy. If you guys want some merch like we're rocking each and every single podcast, check out MHHmerch.com and get you some. If you haven't done so yet, please drop us a like at Facebook.com/Mile High Huddle Pod. You can find us on Instagram at Mile_High_Huddle. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, make sure you're leaving your football pre-save 5-star review for a chance to win some merch each and every single month. But if anything, y'all, please subscribe, like, and share this video and every video you see on the MHH channel. It really helps us grow and reach more Broncos fans just like you.
By the way, Roy, he says, we definitely reached on RJ. I'm just curious. Let's say he goes on as a rookie, rushes for 1,000 yards. Would you still view it as a reach? I'm just curious. I'm not even trying to be a smart aleck. Answer in the chat. Phil McLaughlin, what is up, big dog? Again, he says, if the defense performs as well as we assume it will, is Vance Joseph gone next year, or do we promote from within?
Yes and yes.
Yeah, Zach, break it down.
VJ was already getting head coaching jobs this cycle. I think the Raiders and the Jets, if I remember correctly, one more elite season, I think he's going to get a second head coaching job. And I kind of hope he does, because the Broncos would get 2 third-round picks if he did so. And yeah, they already have the guy lined up, the successor in Jim Leonard. So yes and yes, Phil.
Contingencies within contingencies. That is the way of the good NFL teams, the competent ownership, competent front office, head coaches. Yeah, they got a plan. But as much as I love Vance Joseph, I do. Like, I never hated on him. I was ready for him to be gone when he was fired, and he was obviously not ready to be a head coach, although it wasn't necessarily his fault that they couldn't find a quarterback, that the first round pick they made the year prior before him getting here didn't work out. But I'm digressing a little bit. I just don't think it's ever going to work out for him as a head coach. I think he's like Wade Phillips in that, hey, just go be the best defensive coordinator. Just go be like the best there can be in that realm. I mean, just Zach, the contract he made with the Broncos, because if I remember, it might have been a 3-year, but I'm pretty sure it's a 4-year contract. Fired him after 2. They still get all the money in those contracts, the coaches do.
Right.
So, like, he already had life-changing money a long time ago. Do you really need that smoke, so to speak, of going and being another head coach and then probably it not working out again? Because the team's looking for a head coach, Zach, 9 out of 10 of them, they don't have a quarterback, and that's what's going to ultimately, no matter how good you are at what you do, how great of a leader of men you are, your X's and O's acumen, if you don't have a quarterback, dude, you're just going to be relegated to the dustbin of not only history, but be unemployed.
Yeah, you're Vic Fangio. He even said it when he was fired, Chad. You can't win in the NFL without a quarterback. And that was a shot at the current quarterbacks on the roster at that time, but it's true. And some guys are just better plan Bs and, not plan As, not head coaches. You mentioned Wade Phillips, Fangio, Marty Schottenheimer. We'll see what Vance does, though. But it's a win-win if they have an elite defense this season.
Roy says, I still think so. And that's where I would disagree. We'll see how it shakes out on RJ Harvey and whether or not, he goes on to be as big of an impact player as we all hope he'll be, regardless of whether you liked the pick or not. You hope he ends up being a stud. But I think, this is my own opinion here, Zach. Let's say maybe it doesn't happen his rookie year, even though the lay of the land lines up nicely for this because he immediately projects as the team's starting running back. Be one thing if you're falling in behind like Javonte had to do, for example, behind Melvin Gordon, more proven name when he was drafted. But if he goes out and rushes for 1,000 yards, nobody's going to be talking about the fact that maybe the Broncos could have gotten him in the 3rd round or the 4th round. Sean Payton was it Sean Payton? I'm trying to remember the source now, Zach, off the top of my head. But the Broncos had relatively solid intelligence. He wouldn't be there when they were back on the clock in the 3rd round. So if they wanted him, they had to take him there. And it's not like it was early in the 2nd round. He was picked 60 for what it's worth. 2 trade backs, then RJ. So my point here, long-winded though it may be, Zach, is that if he goes out and proves his team right, proves Coach Payton right and all that, becomes a 1,000-yard rusher and a touchdown machine for the Broncos, how could you view that as a reach? I don't think it will be, in hindsight, viewed as a reach. But I liked your tweet the other day, Zach. We turned it into a meme. Picture of Bo Nix. I'm old enough to remember the last time the Broncos reached in the draft. Wink, wink, nod, nod.
What is a reach? That's kind of what I wanted to say. We're all just following arbitrary numbers dictated by what? A computer, AI, somebody else's opinion, their subjective rankings. A reach to me would be drafting Jeremy Crawshaw, Chad, in the 2nd round, not drafting a running back who fits the head coach's style, who is arguably a top 5 running back in the draft class. I don't see it as a reach. I see it as the Broncos following their board. Every team has a different board. No rankings are the same. So how do we quantify reach? How do we define reach? I just think it's kind of a lazy cult-like take that just because you don't like the pick, you're slandering the Broncos for taking that player. That player, just like Bo Nix, fits the team the best. So why not take him?
I mean, I think you're being kind of you're tongue in cheek when you say his blazing speed. Obviously, Bryant he's not known for his speed. That's not his calling card. His calling card is everything else: route running, hands, reliability, catch point, size, leadership, blocking, everything else. So the only thing missing that would have made Bryant, a borderline, early day 2, borderline push for the 1st round is if he could have gotten into the under 4-5 territory as a wide receiver. Everything else, he lines up perfect for prototypical Sean Payton perimeter wide receiver. Cortland Sutton, if you missed it earlier in the conversation, is their college coach. They both, the same guy, coached at different schools, albeit, but Coach Bryant and Sutton saying they're just like each other. So I don't know. Torrey Horton, I get it, the close home ties and everything, but the more I have dug into learning about Pat Bryant, the more stoked I am, Zach, for him being a Bronco.
When he was drafted, I found an NFL.com write-up by Lance Zierlein, and he pegged him as a 6th round projection. I found other outlets that had Bryant going in the 3rd round, some in the 4th round. That's kind of my point. All these different boards and rankings and opinions vary. So who are we to say the Broncos reached? And if you look at some of the other 40 times, like Cooper Kupp's 40 time was comparable to Bryant's.
And a lot of the measurables too, by the way, and the testing.
Exactly. Michael Thomas's. Jerry Rice famously ran a 4.7 40. I'm not saying he's going to be Jerry Rice, but we're putting too much stock into that, and that's become another kind of low-hanging fruit, Chad. How fast is his 40? How many bench press reps? Can the guy play? Does he fit the system? If so, I want that guy on my team.
And it's fair, Peter, to be skeptical. I don't begrudge that. But the more I've learned about him, the tones of skepticism that I may have had initially have evaporated. And as Phil says, he wasn't a reach on the Broncos board.
Exactly.
That's what matters. All right, guys, a mile high salute and a special shout out to the great Super Chat superstars and supporters helping us keep the lights on tonight, like the Papa Bear. Love you, big dog. Benji Clay, Victor Espinoza, Taylor Christensen, Mount Rushmore superstar, Max Rio up in Canada, Phil McLaughlin, George Fox, Mike Thompson. Love you guys. Zach and I will be back Thursday night. Can't wait. We'll see how it unfolds the rest of the week. Tomorrow night, you got some Building the Broncos. Wednesday, another episode of Broncos for Breakfast, Mile High Insiders that night. Then Zach and I are back.
We'll be gearing you up for the Broncos rookie minicamp scheduled to take place this weekend. Have a great start to your week, though. We'll see you Thursday. Take care. And as always, go Broncos.